Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Avocado Rose on the Compas on the Beat Network. My name is Victor Corona, and joining me is my co-host, my partner in crime, uh, professional makeup artist, and Star Wars universe farmer Megan Lauchner. Megan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. My harvest is great this year.
Yes, I know I asked you last week about what your job would be in Star Wars in the Star Wars universe. So I got a
Yes.
little bit of another kind of random question for you this week to kind of uh, kick thing, uh, kick things off for us here as as we get ready to review Ahsoka episode 3. Time to fly. So you have before we started dating, and we kind of got to know each other. You talked about the fact that you used to cosplay a bunch of different characters, and you can kind of get into it if you want in terms of what the characters that you've cosplayed before. But just for this episode, I just want to know, from Rebels and then now into Ahsoka, which character would you cosplay if you were still cosplaying?
That's a great question. I did used to cosplay a lot. I would enter competitions. I won a couple of few times from animes and games and manga, all kinds of different media, and some weird ones too. But I have very long cosplay catalog. But it was a really good time in my life. It slowed down. Adulthood kind of takes all your money, so you can't do hobbies as much as you want. But if I could pick any cosplay in the Star Wars universe, it would be Hera or Ahsoka. Any character from that race is a really cool design, and I would love to cosplay any of those characters.
Like, what is it about Hera that, like, is it the goggles on the top? Is it the tails? Like, is it like the flying suit? Like, what is it? Like, how would you kind of break it down for yourself in terms of like, where would you start? Like the whole design of cosplaying it.
Well, luckily, unlike back in the day, some of the cosplays I used to do, we didn't have a lot of reference images, or we didn't have really not the reference images were the problem, but just you had to make your own costumes from scratch back then. I remember dyeing wigs with Sharpie markers because we couldn't they didn't have them in stores. You couldn't go on Amazon and get these character wigs, and there were fewer people making custom wigs and things like that. So you had to get really creative. There just wasn't as much material for us as younglings back in the day when we cosplayed. But Hera would be a really great challenge. You would have to make the tails. You'd have to make them fit you. Um, Her suit is amazing. And the entire character design of Hera is great, just like with Ahsoka. Um, they really, really thought these characters designs through it from the animated series to what we have now in the Ahsoka show. But it would just be a really fun character. Her character design's great, like I said, but also she's a really likable character. And don't get me wrong, I've cosplayed some non-likable characters, but it's always fun to play the hero sometimes.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the one that just from all the characters, just for my build and size, I think I would do well with Garza Aurelius. We kind of saw him a little bit in the Mandalorian. He kind of made a cameo there, and I'm hoping we see him here because he's part of the Rebel crew. Spectre 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I hope we get to see him. But in terms of cosplaying, I think I can kind of pull off the walking that he does, and and I know you would help me, come up with the right fabric and everything that I would need to be able to pull it off. So I
It
would be
was
in good hands with you.
We should cosplay. We should have some fun with that.
Yes,
We
we
should.
should.
I haven't done it in years. I guess you could kind of count our Halloween costume before COVID technically a cosplay. I went as George R.R. Martin, and you went as my unfinished book, so that was
Right.
fun.
The Winds of Winter, which still has not been
Still has not been written to this day.
Yes, it's not done. George R. R. Martin, get on it, please. We're still waiting for
Please,
that book.
we're desperate here, man.
Yes. So before we get into breaking down this episode, just the last kind of set of business that we need to get to. Just want to, give a shout out to the writers and the actors out there on the picket line. We were able to, thanks to our landlord, we were able to get some SAG shirts this week, and so make sure without them, this what we're doing today is breaking down this episode wouldn't be possible. And so, make sure that you go and you support. We're sharing links in the description, so go and check it out. Go and support the people out there who are, you know, fighting.
They're making this possible.
Exactly, they're fighting for their lives out there. So,
yep.
With that said, Megan, we get to part 3 of Ahsoka, Time to Fly, written by Dave Filoni, created by Dave Filoni, and directed by Steph Green. Just give me your biggest takeaways from episode 3.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaways is while our heroes are starting to really find their harmony between, Ahsoka and her Padawan, they're really starting to trust each other and listen to each other. Our villains are more at odds with each other than we've ever seen them. The scene with Shin Hati and Morgan Elsbeth, I got them. No, I got them. There's not copacetic emotions there between them. There's no support. They're out there to top each other, to look better than the other one. And, it's really nice to see these dynamics shift. The first couple episodes, it felt like the bad guys kind of had a leg up on our heroes, but there's a lot of discord between their ranks. The other thing I really took away from it was there are Empire supporters hidden within the ranks of our heroes all the way up to the top. And my mind, once this was confirmed, like from last episode, but also this one, it brought to mind the Project Paperclip from World War II, which was also talked about in Winter Soldier. And also Thor. Sorry, I'm jumping universes, but right. That Project Paperclip was a real thing, and we're seeing an example of it used in this media, and I think it's a really good thing to see.
Yeah, I thought for me, a couple of things that kind of stood out was just like the chemistry starting to be built between Ahsoka and Sabine Wren. I know a big portion of this episode kind of was with the whole, training of, kind of going back to the basics. And then Hu Yang being there as well, kind of training her as well, and it just tells you where we're at with this series. Like they're starting to move pretty quickly because we're trying to get to Thrawn and Ezra, so we're trying to get those characters into the show, and so they're starting to move quickly. And I thought the other takeaway was this was a pretty short episode. And it got, they just got to the meat of it. There was no fat on here. They just went straight. They gave us the action. They gave us the dogfight. All that was really good. We saw a little bit of Baylan Skoll. I thought that was a great shot at the end there, which we'll get to. But outside of that, I thought it was a really quick episode, and it gave us exactly what we needed because we're getting closer and closer through Thrawn and Ezra being on the show.
Yeah, exactly. It's really moving the story along, and I'm happy about that. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Like I feel the urgency rising within the story, and I'm excited for it.
Well, moving on in terms of the episode here, what was your take in terms of the theme of this episode? What kind of stood out, or would you like me to go first and kind of give you my what my thoughts were on the theme of this episode?
I want to hear yours. I want to hear what yours are, because I think they're pretty similar to mine.
Yeah, for me, it was as the episode is called Time to Fly, and I think there's a lot of meaning in terms of that of the name of the episode, and it has to do with the fact that you have there's a training going on between a Jedi and a Padawan right now, between Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, and I think they're trying to, you're gonna learn on the fly here. There's no time right now. There's a lot going on. You're trying to prevent another war. You're trying to find Ezra as well, and so there was a quote. There was a scene there where Sabine is like, "Hey, can we kind of expedite this?" And I think you kind of see them kind of headbutting at the beginning of the episode, and then by the end, it's like Huyang says, like, we're not gonna be alive if the way you guys are acting. And I think Ahsoka at that point was like, okay, I gotta let go here and let her do what she's great at doing, and then I can do what I'm good at doing. So I thought that was a big theme. It's like, hey, we have a mission, but it's time to fly here. There's not much time, and there's not a lot of time for us to get to that training that I need to give you.
Yeah, I completely agree. They're learning to trust each other with the time constraints they have for the situation, and I really loved seeing them both give a little to each other. Like I said in the earlier part of this, they're really starting to be copacetic. They're starting to harmonize. They're starting to work, and
Yeah.
with the rising urgency, it's needed. Yeah, I love what you said about the episode's title. It's time to fly. It there's no more waiting. We have to leave. We have to go. This has to work now.
Yeah, and then the friction that you talked about with Morgan Elsbeth and Shin Hati is also there. I think they're trying to set something up here. That's another theme there in terms of, hey, like these the our villains are not getting along, and that's what they want us to think. Is another thing, but we know they're gonna get Thrawn here. So I thought that was also really good. Like, hey, like Shin Hati and Morgan Elsbeth do not like each other, and that's going to be another thing that's going to cost them to not be on the same page as we go forward. But we know where this is headed eventually, so that's
Yeah,
something to keep an eye on, right?
yeah. Those two haven't liked each other since the moment we saw them together. Shin Hati was like, "You're a witch," almost in a bit of fear, like you're something that's far beyond the Jedi teachings that I know. She doesn't trust her, and she doesn't. Morgan doesn't trust her. There's no love or trust between them, but that's really common on the Sith side, even though they claim we're not Sith. But there's always that derision on the dark side.
It'd be like on the dark side, because they're not Sith. I mean, she's
They're
from
not.
the Night Sisters, and then you have Shin Hati and Baylan Skoll, who are they're mercenaries. They're hired for pay here.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, they're like in the middle, as you talked about last week. They're in the gray. Well, more of Shin Hati than Ben Skoll. Baylan Skoll is. So yeah, let's move on to on the makeup chair, and let's kind of, I wanted to, this here is where I kind of wanted to talk about our new character, someone who we've been waiting to see. We talked a little bit about him last week. We said, well, I wonder what where is Jacen? Where is Hera's son? We saw at the end of Rebels, hey, like there's this, Kanan and Hera had a kid, and how are they going to introduce this kid? And is he going to get along with our guy,
With Chopper.
Chopper? What's going to happen there? And right in the middle of this episode, we get our answer. And so I just wanted to, talk about Jacen Syndulla here and his appearance, making his debut here in live action. What were your thoughts? How was his wig, or did they get his hair color right? Just give me your thoughts on and having Jacen here.
I think the only thing I disliked about Jacen was the fact that we didn't get more of him. I was so excited to see him walking up that hallway. I honestly think the team, the makeup team, hair team, everyone just did a phenomenal job with his design. I think they did a great job translating his animated self into live action. I love they kept the hair. I love that they kept the green hair. I know some people are probably going to complain that his eyes match his father's, which was so prominent in the animated series, but I'm fine with it. Putting context into children's eyes is not always the best choice. It always brings me back to the story of the first Harry Potter movie when Daniel Radcliffe, child actor, has blue eyes in real life, and they needed green eyes to match the book. And they did the first day of filming with contacts in his eyes, and he had such a bad reaction to them that after that they just threw the idea out. And we lived with, guess what? No one died from him having blue eyes. It's not the end of the world. Comfort of actors should also be taken into account when it comes to character designs. I know that I've had actors in my chair that have been uncomfortable in some of the makeup because you're gluing prosthetics down, you're putting fake hair on people. Wigs are not always the most comfortable. They're not the most breathable. So actors' comfort should be taken also into account when doing designs for characters. And I think for such a young actor, they did a beautiful job. You can also only have minors in the chair for so long for their safety and care. But I think they knocked it out of the park for me. They really
Yeah, it was
did.
just great seeing him in live action and just him talking about, and Sabine being a Jedi and him telling Hera that he wanted to
He
be.
wants to be just like his dad. He wants to be a Jedi.
Yeah, and honestly, like just like it made me think about Kanan and all that.
Oh my god.
I know we've talked about this, and I hope we get Freddie Prince Jr. to make an appearance, even if it's a flashback.
I will
Something.
riot if we don't get him in a flashback. I will riot. I will be so upset.
Yeah, we better get Kanan. Justice for Kanan.
Justice
Dave
for Kanan.
Filoni, I hope you're hearing us because we need a flashback with
Uh,
Kanan and Freddie Prince Jr., who's been out there letting us know that he is done with Star Wars, but we'll
he
see.
says
Hopefully,
he's done, but
yeah,
is he? Is it a red herring? Are we all just going to be screaming at our TVs soon?
yeah. Just before we move on, is there anything else that that we missed that you kind of wanted to talk about?
uh, with Jacen, I know we just stopped talking about him, but his relationship with Chopper, I
Yes,
was like, it's going to go one of two ways. They're either going to hate each other or they're going to be like thick as thieves. I love to hear that they are close friends and causing trouble. I
yes.
want to see more of that. I want to see the trouble. I want to see our boys get in some trouble.
And I think we will see it. I think we're gonna see them working together. I think kind of like like I told you, kind of like the relationship we saw with Ezra and Chopper, how it was, and just messing with each other. I'm just happy for Chopper with the fact that he has somebody to look out. I'm sure Hera is super busy, being a general and stuff, and I'm sure him and Jason are getting into a bunch of trouble, just like they mentioned in the episode.
Just like Hera did with Chopper as a child.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
like
Yeah,
that.
that's that too. Yeah, I mean, they she they we saw her and Chopper in the episode of the Bad Batch in season one. So there's also that. So yeah, I'm just so happy to see th- everything come together. With Jason and Hera and Chopper. That's going to be another thing to kind of look forward to as we continue on. But
Mhm.
um, if there's nothing else we kind of need to discuss in terms of the episode, I just wanted to get to who won the episode for you. Um, if you don't have somebody, I can go first and I can kind of talk about it a little bit.
I do have someone. It's
Okay.
probably not someone you'd expect. My person who won the episode was that very sneaky snake, Senator Ziono. I believe
Yes.
that's how you say his name. That man is not good.
Yeah.
He has been on screen for like what, 2, 3 minutes, and I already don't like him. absolutely do not trust that man. Not at all. I mean,
Yeah, no,
he
go ahead.
stopped Hera from getting, reinforcements to our girls, and he's just a sneaky snake. Something not so fresh is going on.
No, and I was just gonna make a point to what you're saying is like right off the bat when Mon Mothma, uh, was kind of just greeting Hera and was like, "Hey, how is Jason?" And like even before he asked the question, he was if you go back and watch it again, he was already giving like a bad
Yeah,
snarky,
he was like,
you know, yeah, like why are we wasting our time asking her?
yeah,
You could tell that, and maybe it's a red herring. Like we're supposed to think he's a bad guy.
and
Um,
maybe he's just a jerk, but
yeah,
my senses are tingling that he is not a good guy.
yeah, and then we're go. I know this is about who won the episode, but it also goes back to the whole the Senate is always messing things up for they're always doing something wrong and they're making dumb decisions and they can't get out of their way. And here you are again. They're presented with evidence. Hera is telling them what's going on and they just can't help themselves. They make it about Hera and the fact that, her mission is to try to look for Ezra Bridger and they make it all about that. So who knows? We'll find out in the coming episodes. But this is a big something that a lot of good writers do, where they make us think someone is a villain when really they're not. So we'll see as we go forward. But
We'll
I
see,
I
but
thought, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the person who won this episode for me was Hu Yang, just because he was training Sabine at the beginning, and then you had he's just gonna tell it like it is. He's a droid who's been he's the oldest droid living thing in Star Wars history, according to Dave Filoni and some of the other people out there. And so he's all about the Jedi way, and he's gonna continue to be about the Jedi way. And he was able to scan, and he was able to kind of give us we knew this. We know about the Purgles. We know about all the history because we've watched Rebels. But it's a good, what do you call it? Exposition, where
It was a really good moment of exposition.
right to kind of let people in on what's been going on. For those who have not watched Rebels, we know about how things are going to work here, and I thought he did a good job of kind of being our narrator in terms of
Mhm.
getting everybody else involved into what's been going on with Rebels and now Ahsoka.
Yeah, I think 100% that's a great person who won the episode. I think it's just another example of how good Dave Filoni and his directors are about telling a story that some people know a lot about and some people know nothing about. And it's so great to see.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things where Dave Filoni has really improved with his writing, because it's one thing to go from doing animation to doing something in live action, and he's gotten a lot better. As we went back and watched some of the episodes that he directed in The Mandalorian, and we've kind of pointed out some of the good things that we've already seen him kind of do better now in now that he's the main guy and directing and writing some of the episodes. Well, he wrote all the episodes in Ahsoka, but
Mhm.
in terms of his directing, and shout out to Steph Green because she did a great job with these two last episode. And I we didn't get too much into the dogfighting scenes, but those were great. Those were really good.
And it looked so good. The CGI, everything was flawless. Like I loved it. It was so well done.
Yeah, and the ships look so like real life. The other day we were watching the original Star Wars movies, and like you watch this, and this looks like 100 times better. Like even some of the animation, some of the CGI, as you said, that we've seen in the Mandalorian. Even some of this is way better. You mentioned something about when they landed when they landed after being out in space. Like what did you say that it kind of what kind of what did it remind you of? like the
Oh,
setting.
so yeah, so after they escape the dogfight and they're hiding in the forest, um, and they turned all the power off and everything. All I could think about, the motif that it gave me was like old samurai movies with like they look like cherry blossoms and the they're floating in the wind, and that the music of course felt like a samurai movie. It felt like a Akira Kurosawa movie, and I was just like, oh. There's so many motifs that not just not just this director, but even George Lucas. He's pulled from old cowboy themes. He's pulled from samurai movies. Like you have this amalgamation of all of these beautiful motifs. And that's what good artists do is they draw inspiration from the artists that came before them, and they've set it in this futuristic sci-fi world, um, and it was beautiful to see.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job. I mean, this whole episode, just the visuals were outstanding. Like I said, shout out to Steph Green for these last two episodes that she's directed, because they were and also just the star Lucasfilm, what they're doing with with their visuals has been great in Ahsoka. And I can't wait to continue to watch this series as we go on. So let's move on now to our Melu run meter. Just give me your what was your Melu Melu run meter for this episode, Megan?
I would probably say it's a solid 4.7, 4.8. It's not a perfect episode, but for a 30-minute episode, they killed it. The pacing was excellent. We got to see multiple facets of our heroes. What's going on with Hera, what's going on with Ahsoka. There was conflict, there was resolution. We got to see Jacen. We got to see Purgles. We finally
Yeah,
got to see the Purgles.
yeah.
Hell yeah, thank you. I was screaming at the TV. Poor Vic had to cover his ears a bit, but I was just like, oh my god, there they are. They're there. We're getting so spoiled. We got so spoiled on this episode. We had Jacen and we had Purgles. It's just it's such a good episode. Probably my favorite episode so far, even with it being only 30 minutes.
Yeah, and I agree. I gave it like a 4.5. It's been the best episode just because it's gone to the point. Like you always say, there's not a lot of fat in these kind of episodes. It got right to the training with Ahsoka and Sabine. Then you move on. You kind of see we get introduced to Jacen Syndulla. You see Hera going to the Senate, and then it moves on quickly. Then we get the dogfight with Shinhari and Maruk, and then you get going up against Ahsoka, and then you get. I thought one thing we did not mention yet, and I know we're kind of moving fast here. I just give me your thoughts on this suit by Ahsoka, the space suit, and the
The space
way, like,
suit.
how her tails fit into that suit. I know it's gonna be something the internet is gonna be talking for the next couple of days. Megan, I just want to know what your thoughts were on this spacesuit.
I'm not making fun of anybody. Obviously, the design work that went into it took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it looked like it belonged in the universe. It looked like it did, but it just made me giggle. It made me giggle because her tails were individually, and that's honestly it's a good character. It's a good costume design. There's nothing wrong with it. I just giggled a little bit, especially when she turned around and you could see her face in it. It was just like so cute. I did not hate it. It just made me giggle really loudly.
Yeah, I was like, what are we going with here? But like, here she is. We know she's a badass, Jedi, and we've seen, like we saw in Clone Wars, the one, a couple of the final episodes where she's on a ship. We know she's capable of this, and I think that this was Dave Filoni kind of saying, look, let me work what I've done in animation here in live action, and let me see how it works. I didn't know about the spacesuit. I know a lot of people are probably going to be talking about that, but maybe it wasn't needed, but I respect the fact that he's just going for it. He's like, hey, I have this, and I can produce something like this, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out there.
And honestly, we need that in Star Wars. It doesn't always need to be tonally serious and gritty. And it's great when it is, you know, there some of the shows are they're perfect for that. But we need some whimsical, funny, not so serious taken stuff as well. This is Star Wars, where, you know, in the original movie, the plans were in an ice cream machine from the 70s. Like we need
Exactly.
some funny things like that. We need some enjoyable things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was a great thing to kind of see in this episode. You know, I know, like I said, this is why there's so many things we can get into, but you know, like we don't want to get too in depth with this episode. We just kind of want to give you guys the highlights of what kind of stood out for us. And so, kind of looking ahead, Megan, to episode 4. What are some things that you kind of, either if you have a theory or something that you're kind of hoping happens in episode 4? You know, uh, as we get that you want to see.
I want to see on the lighter side. I want to see Jason and Chopper mess some stuff up. I want to see their shenanigans. We need more shenanigans between these characters. There's not enough shenanigans for me. And on the more serious side, I want to see Ahsoka face off against oh my god, what's his name?
Balon Skull.
Yes, I want to see them look at each other, and I want to know what they know about each other and how closely they've come together in the past. Like, did they have dealings with each other? Did they just know of each other's reputation? I want to see the face off. I want to see what they have to say to each other. I'm just ready. I'm ready to see what happens between those two.
And that's a good thing too, because we know that's coming. We know this from the trailers. Unfortunately, this is the bad thing about watching a lot of these trailers is we're gonna see that. I think what we might get is we might get a flashback with Anakin and Ahsoka. That'll be something that we get. I think another thing to kind of keep an eye on, because we are getting that showdown between Balon, Skull, and Ahsoka, is what he says. Like, what, it sounded at the end of this episode like, I didn't want to do this myself because I didn't want to see Ahsoka. I didn't want to have to be the one who kills a Jedi because there's not a lot of them. But I don't think that's what it is. I think there's some kind of history between them. Either they've met, or they known of somebody who's kind of told them about each other. So it's either Anakin or it's someone else, and they know something. There's some kind of history between them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's how we're gonna kind of, maybe we get a little bit of it. It becomes a Balon Skull episode because we get a little bit more about his background, because we also need to know, like, what is the relationship between Balon Skull and Shinhati? Is that his daughter? Is that someone he killed and he kind of owed it a favor to, and then that he's like, okay, I'm gonna make her my Padawan. Who knows? Like, we don't know what their story is. So I think the next couple of episodes we're gonna find out a little bit more and more about who Balon Skull and Shinhati are.
I'm looking forward to that. If not the next episode, then very soon.
So with that brings an end to our review of episode 4, Time to Fly. Uh, Ahsoka is in good hands. We're 3 episodes in. Dave Filoni continues to just kick this out. Hit it out of the ballpark with what he's doing so far. I can't wait to be back and recording right after Labor Day weekend with you, Megan. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining. I know, we love talking Rebels. We love talking about Ahsoka. This has been a passion of ours to kind of get together and talk. And I just want to give a shout out to the Compas, Fernando and Gilbert, for letting us do this. We'll continue to do this, as long as they allow us to. So I just wanted to make sure that I gave them a shout out for letting us do this. Is there anything else you want to say, Megan, before we get out of here?
Can't wait for the next episode. Thank you again for the use of your channel. See you next time.